This week we're back with our final Creators Edition episode with colorist K. Michael Russell. We're talking the Image series Glitterbomb, written by Jim Zub, amazing art by Jibril Morissette Fan, letters by Marshall Dillon, and of course colours by K. Michael Russell himself. We're going to dive into making pages purposefully dirty and how the use of textures and palettes can bring story into the overall colour choices in a single page of the first issue. You're watching Strip Panel Naked, I'm Hass, this time with K. Michael Russell, and we're going to show you some of the cool stuff lurking in the pages of some of the best comics.
Can you give us just like a little bit of context again, just for this page?
Yeah, Glitterbomb takes place in Hollywood. It's sort of this Hollywood horror story, and it's a very ugly world in this book. There's a lot of characters without a lot of redeeming qualities, and it's just kind of about the nastiness of Hollywood. And this lead character is, late 30s, I think, as a woman in Hollywood, she might as well, be 100, for a lot of roles. So the only real direction that I was given was, we want this book to be, bleak, except for, certain moments and action and things like that. But, very simple, mostly flat. It's not super rendered or anything. And so for even in scenes like this, if you took all of that out of context and you just were given this car driving down the road and the sun is shining, if you didn't know any better, you can make the sky a gorgeous blue and the clouds, and they would all be wonderful and it would look very picturesque. And so for me, it's like, okay, I just want to, I think I did a bit of a slightly green tinge sort of texture over everything. There's no pretty in this book. Like there's no, oh, isn't that lovely? Like there's none of that in this book. And so that's kind of what I was thinking was, again, just keep it all sort of where everything just feels a little bit off, so I don't know if I did a good job of that or not, but that was my goal anyway.
Because like you were saying, there's a million different ways that you could take that image. And if you, like Magic Hour, orangey kind of pinky color over that would create a very, very different feel and very different effect to that page.
Right.
The one thing I really want to talk about on this was the purple that you used for the silhouettes in that kind of middle section.
Yeah, well, basically, again, to give all my secrets away here, but purple is basically a complement to orange and yellow, and it's all sort of in one of those. Again, it's opposite of the color wheel of orange, and probably could have gone blue, but to me the blue looked it matched too well. It was one of those things like, oh, this is like a neat scheme that it's almost looking pretty, let me back off of that. But no, probably could have gone a lot of different ways there, but for me it just it's a very, very desaturated purple that, color only really is recognizable in the context around it. So like if you were to take this purple in this book and put it next to the actual, a saturated purple, it's not purple anymore. Then it's almost gray, so it colors really, like I said, they really only work in the context around them. So it's always interesting to me to see, we're reading this as purple, but if you look at this, in the Photoshop color picker, it's almost completely gray, but because of all the warmness around it, it's sort of, you're reading it as purple. So it's one of those things that, like I said, I probably went through several different, tried a couple different things and eventually settled on that because you're right. To me, it worked.
And the other thing I was going to say about this was costume colouring. So how much of this is stuff that you're saying on the colour in this way because it kind of fits with the feel, and how much of that is actually notes that are coming through?
I think we had some notes on this on some of her other costumes, on some of her other outfits. I remember actually asking for some feedback because I'm not into fashion. Like I'm just not one of those guys that follows and the sort of costume that she was in, this was, of course, is very plain. It's basically just a t-shirt and a little skirt. So I kept it simple. But for some of her other things that she wears in the book, I actually messaged Jibril to find out, what did you have in mind for this? And he had reference material that he had worked off of for some of those other costumes, and And so in those situations, I would, go with that.
There's the other thing in the page is that there's kind of like a grain over the whole thing. So at what point in the process did that come in? Did you decide to do that?
It was pretty early. The thing about textures like this, and they're easily overused if you're not careful. But it looks like you're working harder than you really are when you when you throw. It just makes things more interesting and to me. And I tried it just flat, colors without any sort of texture at all, and just generally, when a book is very flat, at least for my own work, I usually try to do something else like that on top of it just to make it a little bit more interesting. But and it sort of again kind of fit into the griminess of the book. It looked too clean to me, I guess, without the texture. So ended up using it throughout the whole series.
And it reminded me of like 70s sort of cinema film stock.
Sure.
There's just this kind of like noise dancing around the image. It felt a bit like that, whereas like it wasn't digital.
Yeah. And another a colorist that works a lot with sort of textures like this, like Matt Hollingsworth, like on Tokyo Ghost and the Wake and some of those things. I'd definitely say I was inspired by him on some of this, on some of these things, because his work is amazing in those books, but he does this sort of wood grain effect that is he's the only one that I know that does it. It's amazing. But I sort of thought that I do like the idea of it looking more natural and looking more like it's this was printed off on some canvas or something, as opposed to a super clean comic book.
And that about wraps up this final episode with Kurt. There's a much longer chat where we discuss other work too. That'll be up on the Patreon if you want to hear more. Thanks for watching. Strip Battle Naked continues to be a regular show thanks to the amazing support of viewers through Patreon. Every week there's new reading lists, articles and annotated pages, as well as extended interviews with guests, so please check it out. For more comics talk and analysis, you can find me on Twitter @HassanOE. And finally, hit subscribe and that notification button to keep up to date with all the latest episodes, and we'll see you next time.